Joining me for more on this, in fact, the Parliament session that is going to start tomorrow is Professor M.V. Rajiv Gora. He is from the Congress Party. He is in fact going to present the side of the Congress. Mohammad Salim of the CPIM also with us on this program, and Dr. Sambit Patra, national spokesperson of the BJP, joining us from the national capital on this fiery that many people are expecting, another fiery session between the BJP, the Congress. Mr. Salim, before I go to the ruling party spokesperson and the principal opposition, I would like to come to you, as most of the other opposition parties are now fearing that this is becoming a tit-for-tat game between the Congress and the BJP, while the interest of other parties and their voice are not being heard in the parliament. What is your view of the upcoming parliament session, sir?
If this is so, it's very unfortunate. So the government should also realize it's not a one-party government, it's an NDA. So they have to speak in one voice with all the constituents of the NDA. And on the other hand, you have opposition. Of course, principal opposition is Congress, but there are so many host of other opposition parties. So naturally, it's a multi-party democracy, and the parliament has to run. So all the political parties have to sort for their cooperation.
Yes.
Now, it's a welcome development that there is no incoming only, it's an outgoing also, that Prime Minister is trying to reach out. The last session also, this session also, on the eve of. But during the intersession, the government should have undertaken the exercise to have dialogue with the opposition parties.
Yes.
Say, for example, GST or for any other matters. It's not that the Prime Minister give a sermon that let us all speak together in one voice for the sake of the nation. But when the basic idea of the nationhood is being challenged, when the Indian nationality is being sought to be redefined, how can you expect that all parties coming together, all of us are in the parliament? So I think a lot of exercise is to be made.
Let me also get an opening remark from Dr. Sambit Patra. Dr. Patra, as Mr. Salim is also pointing out, and we heard after that all-party meeting, Samajwadi Party coming out saying that, it seems as if the Prime Minister only wants to engage the Congress Party. The smaller opposition parties are feeling left out. Do you think an opportunity somewhere is being missed while you try somehow to pacify Congress for the passage of important bills?
Now, Ankit, today is the eve of the parliamentary session, and tomorrow the monsoon session would begin. So I, on a lighter note, would say, even if you try to instigate me today, I would be calm. I would not take into any kind of confrontation with my able friend from both the political parties, from the left as well as from the Congress Party. And in fact, I would take this platform of yours today to greet them both. And just, though I am their junior in politics, but just I would suggest that, yes, we all have the common idea of seeing to it that India moves ahead, and both my friends would not dispute this, and that's the reason as to why we should see, buying the words from what our Prime Minister had said, that as far as the GST is concerned, it is a bill for the benefit of the poorest of poor. So I believe, and we are quite hopeful, that this session would see to it that the GST is passed. As far as other issues are concerned, let me just repeat a few words from one of the interviews of the Prime Minister which he gave recently. He said that, well, yes, it is not a compulsion in democracy that every debate should reach into a consensus. The debate is essential, and I believe both of my able friends who are parliamentarians and very able parliamentarians definitely would maintain the spirit of debate and not of obstructionism.
A welcome change there, at least today, in the tone of Dr. Sambit Patra. Hopefully that is going to set the tone for the parliament session tomorrow as well. Mr. Gora, now coming to you, sir. The Congress Party has said that the support that they are going to lend to the government would be on bill-to-bill basis, on issue-to-issue basis. Do you now believe with Arunachal, the kind of judgment that you have got, it's a shot in the arm for the Congress Party. Now, do you believe the vigor that the Congress Party has, the opposition would be united behind the Congress Party, and once again you would be able to galvanize all the opposition party behind you on certain bills?
Well, actually, if you look at the last 2 years since Prime Minister Modi took over, we've seen many bills, including constitutional amendments, pass in both houses, and none of these bills would have passed if all parties had not come together and cooperated and allowed those bills to pass. So basically, we have had opportunities in Parliament to raise issues of corruption scandals. You remember starting with Lalit Gate and things like that, Vyapam and many others that continuously crop up. And of course, there are other issues that are really of national interest. Right now, there is this whole BJP adventurism with the constitution. On the, we saw this with Arunachal, we saw this with Uttarakhand, etc. And so these are topics that are separate from the passage of legislation. So legislation, as our leader Ghulam Nabi Azad ji mentioned, will be examined on the basis of their merit, and that includes the GST. There's been a certain amount of history to the GST, a certain amount of working towards resolution of the key differences some of our parties have on that on the final version of the constitutional amendment bill. So those are all issues that legislative business will evolve, and we will find a way to pass.
Dr. Patra, today in your most somber avatar, if I can ask you for an honest assessment of the session, do you believe that the government has done enough, as Mohammad Salim was also pointing out, possibly an all-party meeting just before the monsoon session, possibly in the intervening time also the government should have reached out, maybe the Prime Minister would have had a meeting with Congress President Sonia Gandhi and other senior leaders of the opposition to iron out and make sure that there are no problems as far as the Parliament session is concerned?
See, there are two things to it. As far as the GST bill in particular is concerned, GST bill is more of a technical issue. Rather than politics, yes, definitely political leaders should sit down and they should discuss at length and breadth about those bills. In fact, that's what was done last time also when there was a Chai Ki Charcha, Chai Pe Charcha, invited by Mr. Modi. In fact, Sonia ji and Rahul ji had dropped into the home of the Prime Minister and they had a good time. They had discussed about GST and there was a sense of consensus as well. But as far as GST is concerned, it's a technical issue across the states. Every state had to be taken into consideration and into confidence. Manufacturing states had their own problem. The consuming states had their own problems. So naturally, these things, all these issues have been ironed out over the years. So that's the reason as to why we believe that the few humps that we have, the few jolts that we probably may have, these should go into debate. These should enter into the phase of discussion, and they should be sorted out with consensus. Discussion and debate is the need of the hour. That's what is very important. But today, since Mr. Gowda wanted to complete his last few sentences, and I, being the spokesperson of the ruling party, I should listen more and speak less.
That's possibly an advice that is going to go a long way if the Parliament has to work smoothly. Mr. Gowda, I'm just coming to you, sir. Before that, a quick comment from Mohammad Salim, sir. In fact, yesterday there was this chief ministerial conference in which the Prime Minister was also present. The underlining theme was that the non-BJP chief ministers possibly were not on the same page as most of the agendas of the government are. Do you also see that somehow playing out as far as the Parliament is concerned, the kind of mistrust that the opposition has as far as the government is concerned?
In a democracy, particularly in Parliament, it's bound to happen that it will be reflected. Whatever scenario is outside this country is going on. So if you have a develop a mistrust and deep-rooted distrust, then it has to be reflected. So it's a duty of the government to iron out. I welcome the decision of holding this inter-state council meeting after a long gap. So similarly, National Integration Council meeting should also be held. But when this Kashmir incident has taking place, so where is the government, where is the Prime Minister reaching out to the people, reaching out to the political parties? It's a coalition partner there, a junior partner though, with the PDP in Jammu and Kashmir, but the two parties, they don't speak in the same voice. So how can you expect the entire opposition and the entire NDA speaking in same voice when you have different perception? And that's why you have to debate. You have to thrash out the differences. You can have a voice of dissent also, but you crack down on the media, entire media. You just don't allow to publish any newspaper in a state. How can you think that in the Parliament it will not be reflected?
I'll get a response from Mr. Gowda, and I'll also get Mr. Patra to respond on that. But it's time for debating with the panel of guests from the BJP, the Congress, and the left. The upcoming monsoon session that is going to start from tomorrow in the Parliament. Rajiv Gaurav, before we slip into that short break, Mr. Salim made a very pertinent point about the reflection of what is happening all across the country in the parliament. Would the debate tomorrow, would it start, or would the Congress party start with Arunachal Pradesh and the Kashmir issue to just corner the government on these, demand answers on that before any legislative work can be done?
It's not just answers, it's also action. When you think about what happened in Arunachal Pradesh, the Supreme Court had to intervene to counter the travesty, the actual assault on constitutional principles that the BJP government had indulged in. And therefore, even the acting governor continued to behave in the same manner. So we need action. We need governors to be recalled. We need to see that constitutional propriety is re-established. But if you look at issues beyond that, if you look at each ministry, Home Ministry, and you look at what's happening in Kashmir, it is burning, and we are not seeing adequate response. We are seeing a state of unrest that is allowed to continue to deteriorate. If you look at the Environment Ministry, you see crony capitalism and Adani's being let go with his 200 crore fine against his company being waived. If you look at the HRD Ministry, you have professors up in arms on the street against the UGC guidelines. You name the ministry and I'll give you the issue in terms of how this government is really failing on all these fronts.
Would say that this is
point
what
I want to make. One second. Hold on.
Quickly go ahead, sir. Quickly go ahead. Mr. Gaurav, quickly go ahead, sir, before I go down to the
my friend Sambit Patra is saying that so he's saying that GST, for example, is a technical issue. The BJP has played politics with it before this government came into power, and also, they kept accusing us of obstruction. Now they have not taken the other opposition parties into confidence. So there is so much that they have to do in terms of maturing. We all want to pass legislation that is in the national interest. Please work with us to make that happen, and don't play petty politics, and don't.
Despite you trying to be all calm and composed today, there are burning issues that the opposition is going to press tomorrow in the parliament, and that possibly are going to come in way of the legislative business. Is the government prepared? What's the plan B if the Congress tomorrow wants answers from the Prime Minister on Kashmir, on the nuclear suppliers group, and also on Arunachal Pradesh? These are the issues that so far have completely dominated the headlines, and we are going to see a resonance in the parliament as well.
See, though my both other panelists, both of them are able parliamentarians, but still, whatever little I understand, I would like to say over here. I mean, it's a huge country. India is a big country, and no doubt every day we would have some burning issues which should find resonance on the floor of the parliament. Well, yes, it is okay. But remember, we have to distinguish between what happens outside the precincts of parliament, outside the parliament as political parties. The animosity should not be carried to the floor of the parliament, because on the parliament, whatever we discuss, whatever we debate, whatever we decide, that should only benefit nation. Whichever party we may belong to, at the end of the day, the benefit should not be the party, but the benefit should be to the nation. When as political parties we fight outside the compound wall of the parliament, maybe we may have a political way of fighting. That animosity should be dropped the moment we enter the gates of the parliament. This is the little understanding that I have, and this is the little understanding with which I would call both the parliamentarians in the Congress and the left party, both with me in this panel today. Well, yes, debate, discuss, even dissent, but don't obstruct.
All right, so I'm completely out of time. I just have 20 seconds each for all of you for your final comments. Starting with you, Mohammad Salim, do you believe that the government has done enough for for an atmosphere in which the parliament can function smoothly, or are we going to see a lot of hurdles and ruckus as usual so far in the parliament?
Of late, government is realizing that is the changes in the Parliamentary Affairs Ministry team, and with the tone that Sambit Patra is trying to speak in, can show you. But it's too late and too little. But still, we will have this cooperation to the government. Let us work together, but address the burning issues of this country. And why should be animosity? There is a difference between animosity and opposition.
Right, 10 seconds to you, Mr. Gaurav. Your final comment, sir. Has the government done enough?
The job of the the job of the opposition is to hold the government accountable, to preserve the idea of India. If we are having failures on the part of the government with the NSG and the foreign policy front, price rise on the economic front,
yes,
when you see communal tensions being stoked in Uttar Pradesh, we cannot sit back and say, well, let's pass bills and ignore what's happening outside. This is not a question of animosity, it is about national interest.
Samit Patra, final comments to you, 10 seconds to you. The opposition, despite your calm demeanor, is not convinced. They don't believe the government has done enough.
No, despite they saying this, I should still be calm. That's where lies the solution. That they may say, but I should not lose my cool. And secondly, remember, I slightly beg to differ from what Mr. Gowda said, that if there are certain situations, then we should not, rather than passing the bill, we should discuss those situations. I think both the things should go hand in hand. Pass the bill as well as discuss the situation, because that is for the best interest of the country.
All right, I'm completely out of time. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking to us here on India Today. A different Samit Patra and combative Mr. Gowda and Mr. Salim there. With that, it's a wrap on this bulletin, but stay tuned.